Hey, what's up? My name's Joey, and today I'm going to show you how to make your first app on the iPhone. I'm going to show you a few things, but I'm not going to get into crazy detail about everything just because it's going to be too overwhelming and maybe boring. The whole point is just to show you the programming environment and just show you what it looks like and just follow along, and I hope you enjoy it. Right, so the first thing I'm going to get you to do is to open up the App Store, and up in this field you're going to search Xcode, and right there it is. You're going to click on this and download, and it's going to take a while because it's about 11 gigabytes, so you need about that amount space free on your computer. So the next thing I'd like to make sure that you've done is gone and clicked on the downloadable link in the description, and inside that there will be the project assets, and it should be this file called RocketLaunch assets, and inside there's going to be a few images. The first one is a scene, it's like a rocket launch scene, and there's going to be an image of a button, there's going to be a sound file, and picture of the SpaceX Falcon Heavy. So you can kind of see where we're going with this, and yeah, just make sure you have those. And now it's time to rock and roll. Open up Xcode. And now that you see this screen, you're going to create a new Xcode project. Make sure that this iOS tab is selected and click on Single View App. And then let's get this screen out of the way. Hit Next. And we're going to call this Falcon Heavy Rocket Launch. You can call it whatever you want, but just make sure that you can remember. You can call it tutorial, whatever it is. There might be a few fields here that you have to fill out. So organization name, you can just put your name. And identifier, it's usually kind of done in the way of com dot whatever your name is. You can just kind of appropriate what you see here for what yours is. And the team, hopefully, yeah, you can select none, or that should be fine. And make sure that these boxes are unchecked and click Next. Alright, and you can create it, you can put it in whatever folder you want. I've actually made a developer folder in my user profile. And then click Create. Great, so this is Xcode, and like I said before, I'm not going to get into detail about explaining everything. There's just so much in here, it's kind of overwhelming. What I will explain, though, is a few things that we're actually going to use. So over here we have a file called the view controller, and inside is some template code that they've given us. This is basically where we're going to be doing we're going to write all our code. This is going to tell all our objects to do things. It's going to Falcon Heavy launch. And yeah, and in case you haven't figured out already, we're going to launch a Falcon Heavy because I think that Elon Musk should not be the only one launching Falcon Heavies. I think it should be democratized. We should be able to do it too. Anyway, and over here we have the main storyboard. It presents our screen and everything that's going to, all the objects that are going to appear on that screen. And right now, I'd like you to go into the assets file, assets.cassets, and I'm going to get you to find that, where did it go? Find your folder that you downloaded from the link, the Rocket Launch assets, and you're going to command select each of these images, leave the sound file for now, and grab all of these, drag them over, there we go, and drop them under where it says app icon. And you can see they're all clearly laid out for us now. That's quite nice. And you can also see there's like an empty spot for an app icon here. We don't have that today, but if you really wanted, you could draw something up and try to put those in there. But anyway, we're just going to start with this for now. Otherwise, the sound file, I just want you to grab that, just put it in here, just somewhere under, yeah, just directly under assets, that's fine. And when you see this, just make sure that all of these boxes are checked. Click finish. There we go. All right, and now the first thing we're going to do in here is we're going to go to this main storyboard, and let's move this guy over here. And we're going to grab out one of these objects. By the way, you might recognize a bunch of things that you've seen in apps, and some of them you've maybe never seen before, but this is basically everything, every kind of object that makes up all the apps that you might have seen. And we're going to use something called an image view. So if you can't find that by scrolling down, just type it in here. You can start writing image, and there it is. Pick that up, drag it in, and you can see these blue dotted lines are like line it. Like we can kind of center it and put it right in the middle. So let's just do that. And you're going to grab the corners and you're going to stretch it out and take them to each edge. And then we're going to do something called auto layout. So we're going to click on this TIE fighter icon, and I don't want to explain everything about this, but I do want to explain kind of what's happening here, because you should know why we're doing this. So this is what's going to help keep our objects that we're using in this view consistent when you have different sized devices. Like if you have a small iPhone 5, what is it? Yeah, like the old iPhone 5 sizes, the SE, the iPhone 6, they're kind of the same as 6, 7, 8 is the same, but then the 7 Plus is a bit bigger, and then the iPhone 10 is kind of different. So you need to keep everything kind of consistent, and this is what auto layout does. And when you see that these constraints have 0 next to them, that means that they're going to be tied to the edges with 0 points of distance. And it's points, not pixels, because points actually contain many pixels, and especially in a retina screen, they have many pixels. So let's just click on all of these red lines, and that's going to connect them all. There we go. Then we're going to click here. This thing is called the Attribute Inspector. Just make sure that the image view is selected here. And you're going to click on this drop down where it says Image, and click Launch Scene. Boom, there we go. There's our launch scene. So right now, I think we've done enough. I'd like to see if this is actually working in our simulator. So you're going to click on the play button. That's going to bring it up on a simulator for us, which is how it's supposed to look on your iPhone. The first time you do this, it might take a while, so you might want to make yourself a cup of tea. All right, that's going to take a bit. Just don't make sure you spill tea on your keyboard, because I did that once, and it wasn't even my computer. It was a friend of mine's, and I had to pay for the repairs. It was costly. So the simulator should actually be, it's gonna look like this. You're gonna click on this, and you can actually see that that's still booting up. All right, now it's kind of getting somewhere. Any minute now. Any minute. All right, there we go. Great. There's our scene. So what I was saying before is that you want these these auto layout constraints, it's going to keep things in some kind of consistency. So if I'm going to change into portrait, it should be able to flip around, although that's slightly like, it's kind of made it fatter for some reason. But anyway, we're not going to worry about that right now. We're just going to keep it in portrait because our rocket is going to look best when it's going up on a portrait-oriented screen. So we're actually going to pull out what we just threw in the last time, which is another image view. And we're going to put that in the middle of our scene. And that should appear straight under launch scene. Notice that launch scene has automatically named itself because that's what the name of the photo or the picture actually was. And now we're going to stretch this out a little bit because this is going to be our rocket. I'm going to make it a bit thinner because rockets are quite skinny. And notice we're using the blue lines again to help us. And just to get the same kind of consistency to make sure that you guys have the same thing that I do, I'm going to actually give you the width and height of what this is supposed to be. So you're going to click on that image view, and over here you're going to click on this ruler. Also, I hope that you're actually seeing this, and if it's not coming up, you might have accidentally clicked on one of these, which is going to show or hide it. So, right, click on the image view, go into the width, and set that as 151. Enter. The height, set that as 993. That's going to be pretty tall. And then for the position, go up here to the X value and set that as 131.67, tap enter, and then the y-axis, tap, you're going to hit 161.67, enter, and cool, that's going to be mostly tall and skinny. Right, so now that we have those measurements, we're going to click back here to the Attributes Inspector and go to Images and click on Falcon Heavy. There we go, we have our rocket. All right. The next thing we're going to do is to put in our constraints. And this time I'm going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to place it horizontally in container, which is going to be in the middle of our view. It's going to keep it centered. And then the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to also check it vertically in container, but because we want this to appear exactly where it is, we don't want it to be 0 because that's going to grab the middle of the image and put it right in the middle of our screen. We're going to set that to, we're going to set that to 290. So 290, constraint, great. Yeah, so we want it just like this. So we're back to our scene here, and we've got our Falcon Heavy. It's looking good. But now we want to add in a reset button, because that's something that Elon Musk can't do. He can't launch a rocket and launch one straight away, at least not right now anyway. So we're gonna add this button in. So if you can't find button, just type in button down the bottom. Let's drag this out into our scene, and let's drop it around here. And let's expand this. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Alright, that's looking alright. And over here we're going to go into the Attributes Inspector and make sure your button is selected. And let's change the text color to yellow. I'm going to go with yellow. And over in font, let's tap this, and we're going to change the style to heavy. Alright, now let's bring up the size. Let's make that a good, yeah, 22 looks pretty good, maybe 23. And down in view, let's set the content mode to aspect fit. Let's change the background color to red. And if you can't find the exact same red as we've used there, you can go into other. This color spectrum will come up. You can pull out the droplet, and you can match up your red that way. So let's close that. And yeah, cool. So all we need to do with this is now add in some constraints. Click on the TIE Fighter again. We're going to add in the top, the left, And the right, I can see that it's set to 8 points, which means that it's clearly wanting to connect the button to the Falcon Heavy, which we don't want. So let's click on this drop down arrow here, right, and it even tells us there. We actually wanted to connect to the safe area. So let's click on that, and let's click add 3 constraints. Let's see what happens. All right, and it's kind of adjusted a bit, but I actually don't mind. I think that's looking all right. Let's test this out by running it, and let's see what we get. All right, cool. Okay, well, it's not looking exactly right, and if I had a bit more time, I would probably go into tweaking that to make it exactly the way I wanted it, but that's okay for now. Let's move on. And so now this is nearly done, but we have just one more thing to add, and it is another button. So let's pull out a button. This time, let's just close up these constraints here. This time, I would like to add the button. We're going to drop it in here as opposed to the scene because I want it to appear right on top of everything else. So if I drop it here, it's going to pop up in the middle, and it's actually going to be on top of every other object in the scene, which is exactly what I want. So I'm just going to expand this, drag it out, make it take up the entire screen, because this is actually going to be the button that we press to launch our rocket, and the button is going to be the full size of the screen. And great, now we're going to select the TIE Fighter again. Let's add in our constraints, 0 for each side, so it's going to be taking up the whole thing. Add those in, and cool. Let's make sure our button is selected. I'm going to click on the Attributes Inspector, and we're going to, where it says button, we're going to delete that, hit Enter, so that text is gone. And instead of having text, we're going to make it an image. So let's click this drop-down menu where it says Image, and click Launch Button. Cool. And now you can see it's all black, it's like, what's going on? So we're going to change something called the alpha value, which affects the transparency of this view, this image. And let's make that 0.6. Hit enter, and cool. Let's make it kind of, semi-transparent. That's exactly what we want. All right. Now we're going to move on to View Controller. Our scene is actually finished. So let's click on View Controller, and you can see this is where our code is, and we're going to start working here now. So let's go back to main storyboard, because what we actually want to do is, now that we've laid out all these objects, we need a way of being able to talk to them. So just like you would connect your electronics into a wall socket, and there's an outlet for that, we need to make outlets in this code. So how do you do that? Well, we click on this little icon up here, and it's going to show us both screens. And what we want to do is, what we want to connect is a few things. We'd like to connect, firstly, we would like to connect the Falcon Heavy, the rocket, because we want to tell that to do things. So I'm going to hit Control on the keyboard, and I'm going to click here, drag it out, and just under where it says View Controller, let go, and cool, we've got this outlet. So here I'm going to call it Falcon Heavy Image, because that's what it is. Leave everything else the same, hit Connect, and cool, it's made us this nice little outlet here that's written up this code for us, which is great, so handy. And now we have one of our buttons. We forgot to call that a reset button. Let's go back. I'm going to hit this tab here. Go back to the main storyboard, zoom in a little bit. Make sure that button is selected. And let's call that just where it says title, button, delete that, and we're going to, in all caps, we're going to write reset. I totally forgot to do that. But yeah, there we go. And we may as well give this a name just so that we're not confused where we see button there. Let's go ahead and call that, oh actually no, let's just leave that as is there. We're going to change it over here. So let's call it launch button over here. Hit enter, and yeah, cool. Good. So just so we can tell the difference between those two buttons. All right. Click this button again. It'll take us back to split screen between our storyboard and our code. We've connected the Falcon Heavy, and now we'd like to connect these two buttons. All right. Firstly, let's connect the reset button. I'm going to hit Control, drag that over here under where our Falcon Heavy outlet was, and instead of the type of connection being outlet, let's change that to action because this is actually going to do something. Let's call this reset button. Notice that I'm writing the reset button with, I'm starting it with a lowercase and the next word starts with an uppercase B. This is called camel case, and it's just the, it's the way that, it's just kind of the consistency for how you write in this language. Change the type to UI button, hit connect, and there's our reset button. Cool. And now we want to connect the launch button. So select that, hit Control, drag that over, and we want to make two different types of this button. Firstly, we want an outlet because I want to be able to tell that screen to disappear when it's clicked on. So let's call this launch button view. Leave everything else as is. Outlet, type UI button, connect. Great, and now we have this connected. All right. By the way, if you're having any trouble with this section here, if Xcode is doing something weird, sometimes there's a weird bug, what you can do is hit Command, Shift, and K. That will clean your project, and that hopefully might get rid of any issues that you have during doing this. If you still have any problems, just ask me, and I'll try to help out. All right, now that we have one type of the view of our launch button connected, now we're actually going to connect the button that does the actions. So you can hit Control again, drag this over, let go, and instead of outlet, change that to action. And we're going to call this launch button pressed. Type is going to be set to UI button, and leave everything else as is. Hit connect. There we go. All right, now we're totally done with our scene. We're going to click this tab, go back, and we're going to go to View Controller, into our code. This is all set up for us nicely. I'm gonna like bunch these together. Remember I said that by convention, that's what I was looking for. By convention, all of this is set in camel case, right? When we type in, it starts with a lowercase and next word starts with an uppercase. All right, so I'm just gonna neaten this up a little bit. I'm gonna highlight this section. I'm gonna hit Command X to cut it, and I'm gonna paste it in here just so that we can separate these things out. Where you have these curly braces, I'm gonna expand that out a little bit because these are called functions. Inside these functions, we're gonna write some code, and it's going to make actions for these buttons that we just created. So I'm just gonna tidy this up a little bit. All right, that's looking pretty good. And let's start in the launch button. Basically, every time we press that launch button, we want it to do stuff. So, all right, so before we do any of that, I'm actually going to start by writing a function, which is going to tell my Falcon Heavy everything that I want it to do. And actually, I'm going to do it the messy way first. So I'm going to show you how things are going to, how they're going to turn out as we clean them up a bit later. So I'm going to say let starting Y position equals self dot falcon heavy. Oh, that's given it its name, fal heavy image. That's all right. That's okay. We'll use that. Dot center dot Y. So essentially, we're just saying that the starting Y position on the Y x-axis, the Y axis of the Falcon Heavy, we're setting that a value of its current Y value. All right, and I don't expect you to understand this right away. The most important thing is that you just follow along with what I'm doing. You don't need to understand everything. Just sit back and kind of enjoy as you're doing this. Right, we're going to write guard self dot Falcon Heavy image dot center dot Y is equal to starting Y position, else return. All right. Oops, what have I done? Okay, yeah, it's all good. And then we're going to set the self dot launch button view dot alpha. Remember I told you that the alpha affects the transparency to 0. So basically what I'm saying is when we hit this button, launch button, we're going to tell it that we're going to set the starting position, and we're going to tell it to make this launch button view, that image that's appearing over our entire screen, alpha value to 0 so that it's going to be completely transparent. All right. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to animate the rocket. This is actually going to make it launch, do its thing. So we're going to write UI view dot animate. All right, notice I'm using the auto completion here. This is crucial. I don't know what I would do without this. So I can see this is the one I want. This line of code. Animate with duration animations. Hit enter. And the duration, it's going to take about 11 seconds to complete this animation. And then hit tab, and it's going to take you to this next section here. Hit enter. That's going to expand out into like a block. And inside here, I'm going to write self dot fal heavy image dot center dot Y is equal to minus starting Y position. Great. What have I done? No, cool. It's all good. All right, and now, so we have all this happening, and when we tap the launch button. So the other thing that we need to do is to add a sound, right? Because when our Falcon Heavy launches, it's going to make an incredible like rocket launching sound. That's why we have this here. And I've actually managed to get the exact sound of the Falcon Heavy, which is pretty awesome. So to be able to start adding this in, we actually need to go up to the top of our code, and we need to import a framework which deals with sound. So I'm going to write import AV Foundation, and back here in launch button pressed, you can see if you double click on these curly braces, you can see the entire block of code that is being affected. This is called the scope. So right to the end of this scope before the finish, I'm going to add, well, first of all, actually, at the top, I'm going to declare a variable. So let's just make some space here. I'd like to do more stuff on the reset button, but let's declare a variable player is of type AV audio player question mark. All right, that's something called an optional. This is a big part of the Swift programming language. If I do some more tutorials, I'm going to get into some detail explaining stuff like syntax and rules and like what's going on. But for now, I really just want everyone to follow along and just see that this is what the programming experience is, and this is what it looks like, and yeah. All right, we're going to scroll back down to launch button pressed, and down the bottom here, we're going to start writing the code that's going to play our sound. So we're going to start off with guard let URL equals bundle.main.url open bracket, and oops, actually when we wrote URL, actually notice that yeah, we get some options here that pop up. So the one that we want is this one, URL for user string with extension. And the name of our resource is basically going to be just the name of this sound here. And I don't want to mess this up, because if we give it the wrong spelling, we're going to get the wrong thing. So I'm going to click twice slowly on this. I'm going to hit Command C. I'm going to copy that. And over here, I'm going to hit paste. And around it, I'm going to put inverted commas, because that's talking about a name, and it's a type string. And the extension is MP3. Great. So guard let URL bundle URL else return. Okay, cool. And then the next thing we're going to do is, after that, oh, what's happened? Okay, yeah, we have an extra set of brackets here. Typical problem. If you start seeing red lines of code and it's complaining, just make sure that the start of your function is ending where it should. All right. And if you come up with problems like this, just hit Command Z, Command Z. Go back to the last thing that you did and try to do the step again. Right, now we're going to write do, and over here at the end of that, we're going to write catch, and yeah. So inside the do statement, we're going to write try. We're going to try this AV audio session dot shared instance dot set category, and category is going to be AV audio session category playback, that one. Alright, I'm going to try AV audio session dot shared instance dot set active, yep, that's what we want, and true. Cool. Alright, let's neaten this up a little bit. Like that, try. Okay, cool. That's just how I want it. Next thing I'm going to write is, so now we're talking to player, which is the object that we set up here. Player equals try AV audio player, open brackets, contents of URL with a file type, contents of URL. We're talking about this URL here. Alright, tab to go to the next block of code. File type, that's just going to be AV file type dot mp3 dot raw value. Alright, and then guard let player equals player, else return player dot play. Alright, now we've done quite a lot of stuff here. Oh, that's right, the only last thing that we need to do is we need to catch this error just in case there's a problem. Catch let error inside here. We're going to print out our error in case there's a problem. Error dot localize description. Get this out of the way. Yeah, so I was saying we've done quite a lot of stuff here, and it's kind of a little bit bad practice. We should have actually, after I started writing this code for animating the rocket, I should have tested that out right away just to see if that works or if there's a problem. And now I've written out all this sound stuff, so now we need to see if that works too. So, right, we might have a lot of problems here. But before we do anything else, let's just go and test this out now. Let's see what we get. Let's see what happens. If everything goes well, we'll have a rocket launching and we'll have some sound to go with it. Okay, cool. There's our rocket. We hit launch. Oh! Oh! Oh, damn. Well, yeah, it launched, and we have a sound and everything, and it's amazing. Cool. Alright, well, we still don't have our reset button working, and that, yeah, it's clearly taken off. It's on its way to space. Alright, great. So now let's hit stop on this. We've basically gotten all this stuff. We've added the animations and the sound into a whole one big thing. This is just messy. This is not working for us because if we were to go back on this later, it'd just be like confusing to look at. So we're going to separate this out into. We're going to make it more modular and separate components so that we're going to name blocks of code to do things that, you know, and we're going to call them separate names, and only they're going to do what they're supposed to do. That doesn't make any sense. Let me just show you what I mean. So we're gonna write a function. We're gonna call this one. We're gonna talk about the sound. So play rocket sound, and open close brackets, curly braces. Hit enter. Open this out, and we're gonna grab all the stuff to do with sound that we just wrote, and paste it into our play rocket sound function. So that ended. Yeah, that ended here, and it began right here, right where it says guard let URL bundle, where it's basically finding the resource for our sound. Command X and Command V, paste that into play rocket sound. Just neaten this up a little bit. Great, that's all written in play rocket sound. And now see, this is all appearing in like the launch button pressed. And what I'd also like to make that clearer, so I'd like to say that I'm animating the rocket. So I'm going to make another function called animate Falcon Heavy, open close brackets, and we're going to cut all of this out. See, that function ended. Oh, whoops! I've actually gone and written this function inside the launch button press. We don't want to do that. So Command X. Out, and yeah, make sure that's the end of that function. Start this here. Great. So that function for the animation ended here. Let's select all of this, hit Command X, paste that into animate Falcon. Great. Now this is looking a lot clearer. So here I have a block of code that's animating the Falcon Heavy, and then I have a block of code that's playing the rocket sound. And now what can you do with functions? You can call them. So inside the launch button pressed, which is what happens when you tap on our button, I'm going to animate Falcon Heavy. That's what function we just wrote, and we're going to play rocket sound. Cool. So it should be doing those two things. It should be doing the exact same thing that I was doing before, only it's just a little bit neater. So let's just tidy this up a little bit. I can't stand it when it looks messy and there's too much like white space. Alright, so let's hit play. See what happens. I don't actually know if you can hear the sound because I'm using my AirPods and the sound is coming through my AirPods, but the sound is working for me, and I hope it's working for you too. Like I said, if there are problems, please don't be afraid to ask. Alright, so we'll hit launch. That launch screen is disappearing. You set change the alpha value. Our rocket's launching. Awesome. Cool. So now the only thing we need to do is we need this reset button working. That is the last thing we'd like to do. And let's stop this. Inside the reset button, we're just going to tell the Falcon Heavy to come back down and reset itself, and if we maybe we'll like animate it in so it looks a bit nice when it starts off. So we're going to start off by saying self.falHeavyImage. Actually, before we do any of that, let's delete that. I'm not liking this falHeavy stuff. Like, I realized I named it. Oh wait, I didn't want to. I'm going to hit Command and click on that, and I'm going to go here to rename. And now it's gonna open up this whole nice drop-down menu. Hopefully, well, that's taking a bit longer than usual. Okay, great. This is everywhere where I've named Falcon Heavy, and it's called falHeavy. So I'm going to rewrite this as Falcon Heavy Image. Hit Enter. It's going to rename it, and everywhere where I've used that term for the name, it's renamed it nicely. See, Falcon Heavy Image. Great. All right. So back to what we were doing. Self.Falcon Heavy Image .layer .remove all animations, because I want to remove all the stuff that we just did with animations, and I want to reset it. So self.Falcon Heavy Image .center.y. Right now I'm just telling it where I want it to be, equals 1000. And that's talking about the y-axis. And another thing I'd like to just explain real quickly about this is that, do you remember in school we learned the x and y-axis, and the x goes from 0 to 100 left to right, counting up, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the y-axis, you would think, starts counting from 0 and up, but actually 0 is at the top, and going down is counting up. So when I say that I want the Falcon Heavy to start at 1000, I'm actually saying that I want the Falcon Heavy to start below our screen. All right. So here I'm just telling it where I want to start. And now I'm gonna animate it in. So UI view dot animate, and the one that I want is this one. Animate the duration time interval. Going to set time. We're going to make it 1 second. It's going to be snappy. And hit tab to go to this next part. Hit enter, and we're going to animate it to self.Falcon Heavy Image .center.y equals 660.5. That's going to take it right up to basically where its starting position was, like more or less. And yeah. That should reset just about everything. Also, because we need it to, all right, I'm just going to show you what happens when we run this. see what works here. We're nearly done, but just a few things that we have left to do. Alright, we're going to hit launch. Rocket's going to launch. Great. This is rocket launch. Cool. Right, I want to launch another rocket. Reset. Oh, there it is. Oh, but I can still hear the sound though. Like the last one's still taking off, and I want to reset this thing. And the other thing is we don't have our launch buttons gone. So yeah, clearly when we hit reset, we need this other stuff to happen too. So back in reset button, we're going to add that. We want the launch button view.alpha. We want to set that back to 0.6, which is what it was to begin with, because that's how it was at the start. And then our player, which controls the sound, I want to set that to 0, because I want to stop doing what it's doing. I want the sound to cut out, and I want to be ready to launch this rocket again. So let's run this. I'm going to hit Command R this time, and let's see what happens. All right, here we go. Hit launch. Engines are firing. The sound's playing. Falcon's taking off. The weather's nice. Cool. It's going off. Hit reset. That sound should stop. Oh, and it's animated in, and our launch button is back, and we can go again. Yes. Not even Elon Musk can reset a rocket this fast, but we can. Amazing. So, I hope that you have managed to successfully launch your Falcon Heavy and that you've enjoyed the tutorial. But if you haven't been able to launch your Falcon, I've actually included a copy of the finished project in a link in the description. So you can download that and compare your results with mine and see where you might have gone wrong. Otherwise, feel free to share this on with your friends. They might find it fun to have a go at building an app on the iPhone. And please give me some feedback and let me know how I did, because if I was successful, then I might make a few more of these. For more, please visit raywendelich.com. They have some of the best iOS tutorials online.